Hello and welcome to our next webinar series, Unleashing Cost Optimization Potential in the Cloud, how to avoid the hidden dangers. In today's dynamic business landscape, the cloud has emerged as a big game changer. As Satya Nadella, the Microsoft CEO, recently quoted that cloud is a game changer, empowering companies with unprecedented capabilities for leveraging ultra-performant engines to enjoying the perks of auto-scaling features, in-memory caches, auto backups, high availability, multi-region disaster recovery features, and a plethora of user-friendly features. Organizations are reaping the benefits of cloud like never before. But as we traverse the cloud's path, it's essential to remember that with great power comes great responsibility. It's crucial to acknowledge the challenges that accompany this transformation. One of the most critical areas that demand our attention is cost optimization. Companies are nowadays complaining about the cloud sprawl, which is going out of their budgets and out of their hands. Cloud sprawl is a reality, where cloud resources rapidly multiply across different platforms and providers. While the benefits of the cloud are undeniable, organizations are struggling to effectively manage their expenses and optimized costs, leading to potential financial strain. In extreme cases, this financial burden has even caused some companies to consider abandoning the cloud altogether. Today, we will explore the reasons behind this daunting challenge and discuss strategies to overcome it. Hi, my name is Ali Sajjad. I'm having 15 years of experience in IT. I'm working as a lead architect in one of the major companies for the Department Cloud Center of Excellence. I'm leading multiple teams under me: application integrations, modernizations, database performance specialist teams, designing, planning, and implementing cloud architectures, infrastructures, and databases. So today in our agenda, we will be discussing about unleashing the cost optimization potential, under which we have three key areas of focus. Number one is, why is the cloud cost optimization a daunting task? Why the companies feel that they are facing this challenge and they are not able to come out of this challenge? Why the cost of cloud is going beyond their budgets and beyond their hands? So we would be discussing this first point. The second would be opportunities of cloud optimization. Finally, third would be cloud cost analysis and reporting. So let's delve into the first one, why cloud cost optimization is a daunting task, under which we have again identified five another subheadings. One is the why, to understand why it is a daunting task. The first one is the lack of visibilities into spending practices. The second is inability to track the cloud spending, how much they are spending, what needs to be spent, and how much, what is the limitation. The third is ad hoc provisioning. Fourth, complex pricing model offerings, lack of cost optimization expertise. So we will be discussing this briefly about each of these topics. The first one being lack of visibility into spending practices, which means that we have certain teams altogether having access onto the cloud. They are authorized to create resources, delete resources. They are having such authorizations, and multiple teams are there. There needs to be a certain mechanism that should be tracking how and which teams are spending on the cloud. To understand detail, we have categorized into another five subtopics. Number one, distributed usage. Second is dynamic resource allocation. Third, self-service provisioning, then shadow IT, and then finally, lack of cost attribution. We'll discuss one by one in our next slides. Distributed usage, as we said, that we might be having multiple teams in our organization, like IT team, DB team, developers, SysOps, DevOps teams. So when there are multiple teams having authorization on the cloud and they are able to create the resources, there should be a proper mechanism that should define the usage of the cloud resources and the usage and then the spending practices within these departments. Lack of Such distributed usage, understanding of distributed usage, leads to the lack of visibility into the spending practices. The next topic under the lack of visibility is dynamic resource allocation. There could be some individual users who will be creating resources with some features like auto scaling, which have the potential of scaling the resources on demand. Initially, we see there are X number of instances, but internally they have expanded and then again came back. So we are not able to understand why the cost has sprawled at the end of the month in our billing. So that could be the next reason that could lead to lack of visibility. Another one is shadow IT, proper mechanism, a centralized team who should be authorized to give type of resources. Now, lack of having such IT teams in practice, centralized monitoring team and tracking team in place in the company will again lead to the lack of visibility. Then we have another point that could also lead to the lack of visibility is the lack of cost attribution, which means that normally whenever we have multiple teams working and having authorization on the cloud, there should be proper cost attribution for each teams that they can go on create the resources without having any limitation on the billing practices. So that cost attribution needs to be properly set and then should be explained and made understood by each of the team that their cost allocation is only $1,000 per month. And if they are going to exceed, that should go through a proper approval channel. If there is no such approval channel, going to lead towards the lack of visibility into spending practices, which will ultimately end up with the huge bills at the end of the month. The next subtopic is the inability to track cloud spending. The earlier topic was discussing about the spending practices. Now this is about the cloud spending itself, which means like there is no proper monitoring, proper alerting mechanism, inadequate visibility into the individual resource usage, which could lead to difficulty in identifying unused resources, like the person has created few number of instances and he forgot to delete them. Then we have underutilized resources. Sometimes the resources you might not need, you have bigger resources, but the users have created them. For example, a user has created an EC2 instance with a very large CPU and the large memory on it, while the application running on that EC2 instance is hardly using even just 10% or maybe 15 to 20% of the allocated resources. So that 80% resources are underutilized, but they are into your bills. That such resources needs to be tracked properly and then identified. The next we have no clarity of requirements, which definitely is again will be led because of the unclear understanding about the requirements. There is a higher likelihood of over provisioning of resources leading to underutilization and unnecessary costs. Then we have complex pricing models offerings, which have the hidden costs within them, because if we do not understand clearly what the pricing model is for the particular type of resource, and then if we and our requirement, and then we need to map those each of the requirement as well as the pricing models available on the cloud and how we need to provision the resources appropriately. Only then we are going to get rid of such hidden costs. Then we have difficulty in cost comparison. Take an example. We might need a server of higher memory, and that could be served by either giving an EC2 instance of a larger memory, or you can have a smaller memory EC2 instance. On top of it, we can go with Elasticache, AWS Elasticache, that is in-memory, data store. That is way cheaper than the larger memory instances or RDS machines. So we need to understand the resources cost accurately and provision and design or architect the whole infrastructure and provision the resources accordingly. For that, what is required is the cost visibility properly. Having such resources, only the expert people can only have that clear understanding. So that is what it is. Our next slide talks about, which is, it says, a lack of cost optimization expertise. Companies normally neglect hiring optimization experts, hindering effective cloud cost management. Lack of cost optimization expertise leads to inefficient cloud resource utilization and wasteful spending. Underestimating cloud cost of complexity results in a lack of specialized knowledge for maximizing savings. We understood that why the cloud cost optimization is a daunting task, and that's the reason that one is we do not have a clarity on the spending practices. The other one is we do not track the the expenses on the cloud, the individual usage, the distributed usage, the IT shadow IT things, and then there are most such things that we have highlighted. So once we understand that, the next is we will delve into the next point, which is opportunities of cost optimization. It is mandatory to highlight that there are a number of opportunities available on the cloud. But of course, that is the only reason is the lack of expertise. We do not understand the mechanism of the cost on the cloud, and we end up with this huge bills. So, but we are trying to highlight only those which are extremely important when we need to, when we are working on the opportunities of identifying the such opportunities. So, number one is unused or idle resources. So that's the first point, that whenever we are trying to look for such opportunities, the first one needs to be definitely, we need to identify if there are any unused or idle resources. The next is reserved instances and savings plans which are available on the cloud. Third is modernization techniques, of course. Fourth, periodic performance optimization practices. So we'll delve into detail on our next slides on each of these. Number one is unused or idle resources, which means that our cloud might be having number of unused resources, as we discussed earlier. Like there could be number of users or departments might have created a number of resources and number of instances or databases which are just lying over there. So identifying and analyzing, take action to right size or terminate it. If they are oversized, like you are just using 20% of the resources and 80% are just lying over there, they are oversized, then we need to take action by right sizing them. For that, the cloud also provides multiple tools to identify such unused resources. One such example is AWS Trusted Advisor, which is a tremendous tool that will help us to identify such resources which are unused or oversized. The next is a savings plan. Cloud sometimes offer a number of plans which such examples are like, it has a reserved instances option. I would say it has a spot instances option. Rather than going for dynamic instances, we can go for reserved instances. We need to understand the long-term or the short-term requirement of the project. So we can directly go for reserved instances for a number of years. Maybe it could be 2 years or 3 years, which could be way cheaper than going for the dynamic instances. Similarly, we have spot instances, which means sometimes the requirement is only for a period of time and the data is not that important. So we can also go for spot instances, which is way cheaper than reserved instances as well. The next is modernization techniques, where we will be looking into the options where we will convert the current architecture into new architectures which are available on the cloud. For example, if we have complex microservices architecture, that could also have a complex infrastructure that will definitely lead us to cost on the cloud. So we can go for other alternatives such as Kubernetes integration, EKS on AWS, GKE on Google, AKS on Azure, or OKS on Oracle, wherever necessary. Similarly, if we have less frequent jobs, which might be running once or twice a day, or maybe even 4 or 5 times a day, that doesn't need to have necessarily to have a separate EC2 instance or any server up and running 24/7. Definitely that will put load on the cost as well. So instead of that, we can leverage the serverless technologies that are available on AWS. So like Lambda, from AWS or any other serverless technologies from other cloud service providers. And then we might also have memory intensive applications. For such memory intensive applications, instead of going for heavy load servers with heavy CPU or heavy memory, we can leverage the elastic caches, which is in-memory service on the clouds like Elastic Cache or AWS, which will benefit us for such modernization techniques, definitely benefit us in minimizing the cost on the cloud databases or applications. Then we have the fourth, implement periodic performance optimization practices. Now, this is one major area which companies normally overlook. When we move on to the cloud, we get everything on ease. We just get on simple a number of clicks and we have the resources in hand. If we are looking for high scaling the instances horizontally or vertically, we just need to provision a number of instances or take usage of the Elastic Cache or the auto scaling features which are easily available on the cloud. So what happens is when you have a database which is having a bad SQL queries, a poor database design, inefficient indexing, or lack of caching, or applications which has a very bad coding practices, unnecessary data access, and heavy usage of CPU or memory because of those such bad coding practices, what we are doing is just to get the better performance, we are leveraging those features from the cloud, like Elastic Cache or auto scaling, which if we might have tuned the queries or the design of the application or the design of the database, we might have got the better performance without scaling the instances. What does that mean is you could have gained the desired performance with one single instance, but because our teams, the database or application teams laziness, we are adding on the resources, which is definitely leading to the huge cost on the cloud. So this is something that normally companies overlook, and the cloud providers definitely do not want to highlight these things, because if when they have the other options by providing such options, and they are charging you with huge bills, why they want to highlight about the database tuning and application tuning. So this is something very important, and that needs to be added on to our opportunities of cost optimization. So now we have understood the cloud cost optimization, why it is a daunting task. So that by adding some certain practices, some tracking mechanisms, we can come out of such challenges of the cost optimization on the cloud. And the second point that we discussed is opportunities of cost optimization. We delve into some key areas which can benefit us in terms of cost optimization. Then finally, once we achieve these two things, the next goal would be how we can maintain the cost even in the future. For that, the best option is to have a proper analysis and a reporting of the cloud cost. And that's our next agenda item. The further discussion we can discuss in our next sessions. So the first point here is understanding the cloud bill, understanding different charges, fees, and taxes including in the bill. The second is to generate the reports, use the cloud providers' native tools or third-party tools. So such tools really benefit us, giving the clarity about department-wise usage or the team-wise usage or individual. Another great benefit available on the cloud is setting the threshold limits in environments, alert on spending limits. So you can, if not setting such threshold limits which halts the application, at least you can have an alert whenever the spending limit exceeds a certain amount of time cost. Then finally, you have using cloud cost data to make such decisions. So normally, the decision making mechanism in the company do not consider these bills and reports and then thresholds and the alert mechanisms of the cloud. Decision making team should be educated that whenever they are making the future decision, they need to consider these cloud bills and the reports and take the decisions accordingly. So that's it for today's session. We have discussed three key areas. One is why is the cloud cost optimization a daunting task? The next is opportunities of cost optimization. And finally, we have also delved into the cloud cost analysis and reporting. Thank you very much.